All right, Krug Show on a Tuesday, a little impromptu live. The Niners have signed an interesting player. I think a pretty good player. We're going to talk about it right now. Come aboard. Let's go. Off and running on the Krug Show, Tuesday, December the 9th. Niners off day today, but the grind never stops. Welcome to Tuesday, December the 9th. Welcome to the Krug Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. The best barbecue in all of Northern California is Pig and a Pickle. They got 2 locations, soon to be 3. They're in Corte Madera. They're in Emeryville. They're soon to be in Petaluma. That's right. They're coming to Petaluma. And we were just at Pig and a Pickle on Sunday for the Krug Show meet and greet, and about 100 Krug Show fans showed up. Thank you to all of you, and most specifically, thank you to Damon and Mary, the owners of Pig and a Pickle, for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. And we are off and running on this Tuesday. And we're going to hit a bunch of headlines here, but the one that really made me want to go live today is the Niners have added Jayvon Baker to their practice squad. And I've always been a Jayvon Baker fan. If you watch this guy, man, you really, really like him. You'd really like him. There's a lot to like. He's got NFL body. He's got NFL instincts. He's got good size. He's not a burner. You know, he's absolutely not a burner. So he'll fit in just fine because the Niners do not have burner wide receiver types, but he's got good size. He's got good strength. He's got good route running ability. He's got good pedigree. He's been well coached, and he's the newest member of the Niners practice squad, according to Jeremy Fowler. He was a 4th-round pick by the Pats in 2014 or 2024. Excuse me. And he's a real talented guy. In fact, I might as well share the screen. I can show you this. I think this won't demonetize the channel, but we'll see. So here is my man Raj, who's a big fan of Javon Baker, and Raj and I will stream tonight, by the way. Check that out later on tonight.
Tape.
And we'll take the volume down on this just so we don't call more. Anyway, you're seeing Jayvon Baker there. A little bit on Baker. Let's talk a little bit about him, though, because he's an interesting player. He's 20. Or first of all, he started at, as I mentioned, he's an Atlanta kid, right? Born in Atlanta, GA, was a 4-star high school recruit, had a phenomenal senior year, was headed to Bama, and then went to Bama and played at Bama in 20 and 21. They won the national championship when he was there. Now, he wasn't a star on that team. He was a backup on that team. But then he transferred to Central Florida to go join Gus Malzahn, who I'm sure he knew from high school scouting. And he played 2021 in Bama, 22 and 23 for Central Florida, and was great at Central Florida. First team All Big 12, 52 receptions, 7 touchdowns. His final year there. And he originally was going to transfer to Kentucky, but then had a change of heart and joined Malzahn with Central Florida. So, got drafted by New England, 4th-round pick in the 2024 draft by the Pats. And he's now 23. He, played with the Pats as a rookie. He played 11 games as a rookie. He had 1 catch for 12 yards. They were kind of in a transition there. But I wonder if Mac Jones gave this guy the thumbs up, because Mac knows him. And this guy's got talent for sure. He was a 4th-round pick by the Pats in the 24 draft. 6'1", a little bit over 200 pounds. Big hands, 9 and 5/8-inch hands. Passable 40, 4.54. Won't embarrass you. Is not slow. He'll easily outrun Jennings, that's for sure. His greatest thing is as far as his athletic testing was the vert. He had a 37-inch vert. So that's 70th percentile the year he came out. So he's definitely got hops. He can play the ball in the air. As I mentioned, he played 11 games as a rookie with New England. And then they released him in 2025 at the Cutdown in August. And he was out of work at the end of August, but he signed with Philly's practice squad in mid-October. And And then they cut him loose, and he's been on the beach ever since. What I like about this guy is he's very natural. He's a natural receiver. He's a natural route runner. This guy knows how to play the position. He's been well coached. He's an instinctive wide receiver. He really is. He's got NFL ball skills, big hands, good ball skills. Now, there's been some concentration issues with Jayvon Baker, and that stands out. At times, if you watched him when he's looking good and making plays, you'd be like, oh, man, this guy's got, he's a good route runner. He's got tremendous ball skills. But then you look at the number of drops and, he loses. It's really just a focus issue, and a lot of times college kids have a hard time, transitioning to the pros because, the pro focus and the pro intensity and the pro, all the intricate details that go into playing wide receiver in the pros. You don't have any of those in college. And we've talked about this a bunch. In college, Shanahan, I've asked Shanahan about this. He was a collegiate receiver. And he's like, man, in college, they just show, they hold up a gigantic orange card, and that's it. And then they'll tell you, by the way, this play is going away from you. Just catch your breath on the backside. So oftentimes, star college receivers are taking all kinds of plays off, and there's no complexity to what they're doing compared to the pros, where there's tremendous complexity by comparison. And, there's the route that you're running, there's the coverage you're going against, there's working back to the quarterback. You have to really be a cerebral player to play wide receiver in the NFL. It's just far more intricate. It's far more involved. It's not just, he held up the purple card. It's a little bit more complicated than that. And so lots of college receivers step into the NFL and they don't do anything as rookies. And this guy's no different. But I do think there's talent here. And he was invited to the Senior Bowl. I saw him demonstrate at Central Florida, really good ball skills at times. He's natural. He's an instinctive receiver. He knows how to get open. He can win. When you watch him at Central Florida, he won down the field quite a bit. He's got excellent body control when the ball's in the air. He needs more refinement. He needs work on his route running. He needs work on getting into and out of the breaks with no wasted movement, getting his head turned, getting his hands around. This guy's strong enough to beat the jam, and he's athletic enough to get open down the field, and he's got a history of making plays down the field. But he doesn't have that extra gear. He's a downfield receiver in college, but he doesn't really have that extra gear that many of the downfield receivers in the pros do have. He doesn't have that sub 4.4 burst. He doesn't have that kind of speed. But what he does have is he's got refinement. He's natural. He's instinctive. He's confident. He can win as far as jump balls, the ball in the air. He's very competitive at the catch point on the balls in the air. He's got a big catch radius. He's had some adversity. I think this guy may have been a little believing his own press clippings, maybe as a 4-star recruit. Then he went to Bama. Then he was big man on campus at Central Florida. And I think he stepped into the NFL with a lot of juice and a lot of confidence and got just slapped down. Like, welcome to the NFL, kid. There's corners here. And New England in practice, they've got one of the best secondaries going. So you name it. Marcus Jones, Christian Gonzalez. They got some really good young corners there, and I bet you he just got dominated by their good young corners. So now there's the adjustment, and let's see if he could, what he did. Obviously, he impressed the Niners. He was one of 5 guys that worked out about a week ago, and obviously they thought about it and said, hey, let's put him on the practice squad and give ourselves another body on the practice squad that we can go to in a pinch. So let's take a look at what the Niners have right now. Not that we all don't have this memorized, but I'll just share the screen and you guys can see it for yourselves. Here's the depth chart. Here's the 49er depth chart. There's an ad, so we'll get rid of that. We'll click this out of here, click that out of here, move this around. So obviously you've got Jauan Jennings, But the Niners are operating the last month or so like they're a one wide receiver team. Are any of these other jokers going to step up and play? You've got Jawan Jennings, who's doing it all. Demarcus Robinson looked great in camp, and he hasn't done squat. Ricky Pearsall was a first-round pick, and he's done even less. Kendrick Bourne had a couple good games until JJ got pissed off, and now Bourne's like persona non grata. Nobody wants to throw the ball to Bourne, fearing the scorn of Jennings. Sky Moore is almost exclusively a return guy. Jordan Watkins and Jacob Cowing have been deemed either not good enough or too raw or too whatever. They can't get on the field. Shanahan doesn't trust those young receivers at all. As I said, there is some refinement that is required. Then on the practice squad, what do you got? You got Malik Turner. He's a special teamer. He's almost more of like a defensive player than an offensive player. He's more of a hitter than he is a receiver. But he's a special teamer and a pretty good one. And then you have Junior Bergen, who, he's stopping by the NFL on his way out of town. He's not an NFL player, so he's on your practice squad. And now you're adding this guy to the practice squad as well. So, if you look at the Niners, I mean, it's JJ and a bunch of guys who are AWOL. I mean, it's JJ and a bunch of guys who don't do anything. So it's open. It's wide open. If Shanahan doesn't trust Cowing and Watkins and doesn't feel like they're good enough, okay, so you put a line through them. I think Watkins is a really good receiver, but whatever, we'll see. They can't, for whatever reason, they can't coach him up. They can't get anything out of him. They did draft him in the 4th fucking round. And by the way, they drafted Jacob Cowing in the 4th round the year prior. That's 2 4th-round picks that you can't get on the field at all. I mean, after a while, that's not on them. It's on you. You're either picking the right guys or your wide receiver coach can't coach them up. Because where are they? Where is Cowing? Where is Watkins? You have no receivers outside of Jennings, and you got 2 guys that run in the 4-3s that aren't doing anything because you can't coach them up, because you can't get them out there. Either your personnel department should be canned for picking the wrong guys, or your coaching staff should be canned for not being able to coach them up. But you need a receiver, and you've got guys who run 4-3 just walking around the locker room, walking around the facility, who aren't doing anything. Bourne looked good for a couple games until Jennings, gave him the stank eye and basically, was like, Jennings is on this mission for his stats, so he's a lot about himself. And once Bourne started getting all the balls, it was like, oh my God, I'm sure Jennings just lost his S. Because now Bourne doesn't get the ball at all. How about that? Bourne had back-to-back 140-yard days, looked like the best receiver on the team, hasn't touched the ball. Doesn't touch the ball. Because I think Jennings would probably give him the stank eye. I don't have any sources on that. I just have a feel, but my feel is more accurate than most people's sources. And as far as Pearsall, what would you say you do? Hey, you're not catching the ball. I mean, I hope he's having fun. Seems like he's sitting courtside at the Warrior game. He's hanging out with his guys and this and that. Hey, bro, how about produce? You were a first-round pick. Remember that? Remember the 2024 first round? You were in it. It's time to produce. You get the 1-year scholarship, the 1-year redshirt year. That year's come and gone. And now this year had a couple good games early. I mean, I just get the feeling he's a tease. He gave you a couple good games late last year. Then as soon as you depended on him this year, he gave you a couple good games this year. And it's just, that's it. That's a wrap. Hasn't done anything. He's running around and not getting anything done. So the Niners have openings. They have a need. It's Jennings and the Jenningettes. I mean, they got nothing. They got absolutely nothing. Pearsall isn't doing anything. Demarcus Robinson isn't doing anything. Kendrick Bourne was doing things until JJ, gave the stank eye. And now Bourne's like, oh, he doesn't play at all. Sky Moore is a return guy mostly, though they could use him, but they don't. Watkins and Cowing, for whatever reason, either they drafted the wrong guy or their coach isn't very good because they can't get these guys on the field. So it's wide open. And Jayvon Baker, he's I don't know that he's any worse than those guys. He doesn't have the experience of Bourne, but he's faster. He doesn't have the speed of Watkins or Cowing, but he's bigger, stronger, and probably tougher. He doesn't have the return ability of Sky Moore, but they're not asking him to be a returner. And then Demarcus Robinson, I think has probably got some use to him as well. But I mean, he has not found his way in this offense at all. And then Ricky, who knows? So I mean, it's wide open. It's wide open. So Jayvon Baker, I think, is probably a pretty good pickup for the 49ers. As I said, in college he won down the field, natural instinctive receiver with excellent body control, who needs some refinement, needs some work on his route running, needs some some growth and some development, and he loses some focus. But we're also talking about a guy who was a really good player, in high school, and thinks of himself as a really good player, and was a 4th-round pick, and it just kind of washed out in New England. But you know what? Maybe this could be his landing spot, and he plays well here. So we'll see. But overall, I kind of like that move. I kind of like that move for the Niners. Okay, let's hit some of the other stories of the day. The other big story of the day, the Indianapolis Colts are signing Phillip Rivers. The 44-year-old quarterback is back. Phillip Rivers could go against Brock Purdy on Monday Night Football next week. And by the way, Purdy was born in 1999. Rivers was drafted in 2004. Rivers was drafted and Purdy was in preschool. I mean, and now they're going to go against each other in an NFL game. So I actually think this is a huge break. I really do. Phillip Rivers hasn't played in the NFL in 5 years. I'll take Riley Leonard over Phillip Rivers right now. And the fact that they're going to put Phillip Rivers out there, I think, is an absolute break. The speed of the game, it's like there's an adjustment when you come out of college to the speed of the game. Well, guess where there's also an adjustment? When you've been sitting on the couch for the last 5 years doing nothing but talking to your wife and kids, something tells me that the speed of the game is going to bother you. That you've forgotten how fast the game is, that you've forgotten the intensity of which it's played. So bring on Phillip Rivers. I mean, I think that's awesome. There'll be tons of people who want to watch it because he's been out of football for 5 years and now he's back, and that's a rarity. So it's going to make it more juicy. But man, I'd rather face Phillip Rivers than go up against Riley Leonard. Riley Leonard knows the offense, has been practicing with the team, completed 65% or whatever last week in his first go. I mean, he doesn't have refinement, he doesn't have a big arm, but he's been playing, and he's roughly 24, 25, not 40. And this guy's 44. It's funny. I was doing a stream with Dieter last night, and Dieter's like, yeah, this guy's been out of the league for a year or two. I'm like, Dieter, I think it's been more than a year or two. He's like, nah, I don't think so. And then when he looked up, he last played in 2020. It's almost 2026. We're 3 weeks away from 2026. The guy last played in 1999 or in 2000. Or no, 2020, excuse me. He last played in 2020, but it's almost 2026. So bring on Phil Rivers. It was announced today on the Pat McAfee show that Rivers is back. All right. Couple other things. The playoff picture right now is pretty interesting as well, I think. Let's share the screen and I can show you the playoff picture. We'll get rid of that one, and I'll show you the playoff picture right now. So this is the playoff picture as we speak. Okay. Wait. Where is it? Maybe this is it. Let's see. I thought I had it. Maybe I can't show it to you. Maybe I can't show it to you, but I'll just tell it to you. All right. So right now in the way the playoff picture is right now in the NFC, Rams are the 1. They'd have the bye. Okay. The 2 is Green Bay. They would host Chicago, the 7 at Lambeau. And it looks like Green Bay's got the upper hand on Chicago. Just the way that game went, it just felt like Chicago felt like the kid brother. Like they're used to losing to Green Bay. Green Bay's used to beating Chicago. And that would be the 3rd meeting this year. And who knows, maybe that will be Green Bay going for 3 straight against Chicago this year. We'll see what happens next week or 2 weeks from now at Soldier. But that would be the matchup. Green Bay at home against the Bears. Niners would be in Philly against the Eagles. Seattle would be in Tampa against the Buccaneers. And I'll say this, man, I like the Niners to beat the Eagles in Philly, and I like Seattle to beat Tampa in Tampa. Seattle's really good on the road. Philly's obviously hurting at this point. Hurts is not playing well. They're banged up on the line of scrimmage. They're not running it well. They're not stopping the run. Philly's just bad. Philly looks bad. And Philly looks like they've got some bad vibe. And it's the wrong team to have bad vibes, because when they have bad vibes in that city with their media, it's like, oh my God, it becomes just a filibuster of crap 24/7 in that town. So I like the Niners to beat the Eagles. And I kind of like Seattle to beat Tampa. So then if the Bears somehow beat Green Bay, which could happen, the Bears would go to L.A. and play the Rams as the lowest remaining seed. And the Niners would go to Seattle and play the Seahawks in that divisional round. That's if they beat Philly and everything happens the way I'm saying it. If Green Bay beats Chicago, then the Niners as the 6th seed would go to L.A. and they would get the Rams in the divisional round at SoFi, which I think is not the route you want to go. I think the key is to avoid the Rams as much as possible and maybe hope somebody else knocks them off. So I think the Niners would have a great chance of beating Philly. And if Chicago pulled the upset, then Chicago would, over Green Bay, Chicago would go to L.A. and the Niners would go to Seattle. And in that scenario, I think the Rams would probably beat the Bears, but who knows? Maybe the Bears beat the Rams. And if the Bears beat the Rams and the Niners somehow beat Seattle in that division round, it would be the Niners at home against the Bears in the NFC Championship game. With a win, they would be at home again for the Super Bowl. It's not going to get more fortuitous than that. Good fortune has struck the 49ers. By the way, in the AFC, Denver's the 1. New England's the 2. They would play Houston. Man, that would be an incredible battle. Buffalo would play Jacksonville in Jacksonville. I think Buffalo would beat Jacksonville in Jacksonville. Chargers would play the Steelers in Pittsburgh. I think the Chargers would beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh. So we could set up, if New England beat Houston, it could set up Buffalo and Denver in the division round, and maybe Houston and or New England and the Chargers in that division round. And who knows? Who knows at that point? Who would win those games? Who would win the game if it were Buffalo and Denver in Denver? I'd probably go with Buffalo, but you never know. That's definitely a coin flip game. And then you'd have Chargers Patriots in New England. I'll take New England there. And you could have New England Buffalo, a battle of the AFC East. Wouldn't that be something if we wound up with like an NFC West, NFC Championship game and an NFC East, AFC title game? It could happen. It could be New England Buffalo. It could be Niners Seattle. It could be Niners Rams. It could be Rams Seattle. I think that very well could happen. So that's the playoff picture as it stands right now. Now, the other notes of the day surround, I thought the point differential by division is pretty interesting as well. Here's the point differential by division. AFC North, minus 85. Or AFC East. AFC East, minus 85 points. This is the division as a whole, point differential-wise. AFC East, minus 85. AFC North, minus 189. Wow. How bad is the AFC North? Tire fire. AFC South, plus 66. AFC West, plus 25. NFC East, minus 164. Wow. NFC North, plus 138. All right, that's pretty good. NFC South, minus 246. The NFC South is an absolute tire fire. And wait for it, the point differential in the NFC West is plus 285. Almost 100 points better Oh, no, actually, more than that. Over almost 150 points better than the second best division. NFC West is plus 285. The NFC North is plus 138. That's second place. That's amazing, man. The NFC West is just laying waste to the rest of the NFL. Plus 285? That's unbelievable. Plus 285 for the division is absolutely shows the dominance in the division. And that's with a Cardinal team. Let's check the Cardinals. Yeah, Cardinals are minus 66 point differential. Rams are plus 152. Seahawks are even better than that, plus 161. Niners are plus 38. Cardinals are minus 66. The entire NFC South has a negative point differential. How about that? That's crazy. The entire AFC North has a negative point differential. There's not the North in the AFC and the South in the NFC are just two of the epically bad divisions in football. That's kind of interesting. Okay, so that's one of the thoughts. Let's take a look at John Lynch went on with Tim Kawakami, and he had some interesting things to say on the TK show. TK always getting the prime interviews. I'm not sure why. Somehow something happened in like the last 5 years that suddenly Tim Kawakami is deemed like the dean of the Bay Area media. What has he done for that? He scares Jed shitless. That's what happens. He knows dirt on Jed. So now he's getting interviews that he shouldn't get. But he got John Lynch. And he said, and John Lynch on how long he plans on being the GM for the Niners, which is kind of a dick question. Hey, how long do you think you're going to stick around here? Like, when are you getting the hell out of here? I'd love to. I didn't listen to this, but man, I would have loved to have heard how that question was broached. Hey, John, how long do you think you want to do this? How long is he going to be allowed to do this before the Yorks yank his sheets? I think that's probably the more appropriate question. All right, this is what Lynch said, though. He said, I came here to get something done. And that was kind of to help a really good, proud organization get back on track and win championships, compete and win championships. We've done the compete part. We haven't won it. And when I get my mind set on something, I really want to see it come to fruition. And I'm having a really good time doing what I'm doing right now. I will tell you the conclusion I have is I never thought I'd be here this long. Really? You didn't think you took the job in 2017? You didn't think you'd be here in 2025? 8 years later? Really? That seems so what, you just thought you were gonna step into the league, you were gonna rampage and win championships, and everybody doing it with experience all aren't as good as you guys? I mean, it's good to have confidence, but that seems like maybe a little too much. You've never been a GM before. You're going to walk into a league that has Eric DeCosta and Brett Veach and Brian Gutekunst, and all these guys have been doing it for a long, long time, and we're scouts and head of college scouting. You're just going to rampage. You're just going to walk in and win championships. Really? That's what you thought? He said, I'm having a really good time doing this right now. And I'll tell you the conclusion I have is I never thought I'd be here this long. I don't think I thought it'd be easier, but I think I probably thought we'd have a couple Super Bowls in our hip pocket by now, and that hasn't happened. Yeah, it ain't easy. It ain't easy. Especially it ain't easy when you miss a ton in the first 3 rounds of the draft. He said, we've had good chances. We haven't paid them off. And so I'm committed to trying to pay this thing off, having a good time. I feel excited about where our organization is at, and I think the arrow is pointing up. All right. So, fair enough. I like John Lynch. It's not like I'm anti-John Lynch, but you thought you'd have a couple Super Bowls by now. You thought you were going to roll into this job that you've never done before, beat all these guys who are awesome at it and have been devoted their life to it, even though you devoted your life to being a football player, and then you devoted your life to being a broadcaster, and now you decided you're going to devote your life to being a general manager, and you expected to just walk into the arena and win championships? For an organization that hasn't won a championship in 30 years? That's pretty cocky. That's pretty cocky. And then Lynch was asked what the 49ers will do with the $24 million in money that was initially guaranteed to Aiyuk before it was voided and put back in their coffers. And he said, hey, we'll see whatever the situation is. I think it's really important that you spend it wisely. That's good. Going heavy on the draft, that's a fun way to build it. And it's probably the way that you should focus on now. We've had success through the draft. You've had some success through the draft, but you've also missed 18 times in the first 3 rounds, and it's there for everybody to see. He said, I'll tell you, it's healthy for your team to keep adding and infusing youth. It's a young man's game. I agree with that. And I just like the combo of youth and experience. So whatever we have, we've got to just be committed to spending it wisely because we've rewarded a lot of players around here, and there are consequences for that. But I think as long as you manage it well, we can keep this thing going. Okay, so he kind of dodged that. I mean, there's no real. We're going to spend it on a wide receiver, a corner. He's not going to say that. How are you going to spend that money you saved? We're going to try to spend it wisely. I think that answer is a good answer, though. I think they do need to stop buying free agents thinking that they can do this in a blink of an eye and start building through the draft. That's how you win, through the draft. It's frustrating to the people that don't know college football because then there's this huge element of what makes the 49ers better in the future that they can't talk about. You could have the biggest YouTube channel in the world, but if you don't watch college football and you don't scout football players and you don't know personnel, there's the whole bloodline to the sport, that tons of people can talk. You can't discuss it. You can't. If you're one of these guys that always look for the guy who's putting down the draft talk in April. That's the guy that can't talk about the draft, is frustrated that his channel or whatever is not getting clicks and is just lashing out, being mad. I'm mad. I want to talk about 3 outside linebackers and 2 defensive ends, but I don't watch college football and I have no idea what I'm talking about. And I like to talk down to my audience, and I can't talk down to my audience because some people in my audience know the draft better than I know the draft. So I can't talk down to them, so I guess I'll just have to make fun of people who talk about the draft and call it a crapshoot. If it's a crapshoot, why are you paying your general manager $5 million a year? If it's a crapshoot, why not just have the fans vote? If it's a crapshoot, why not just pick names out of a hat? Why spend all the time and money of getting on planes and doing workouts and meetings and scouts? Why do all that if it's a crapshoot? So it's not a crapshoot. It's not a crapshoot. That's a crappy idea from people who don't know football, who are trying to build a channel around football, and they can't talk about the draft, so they just downgrade the whole thing. The draft. Okay, I get it. You can't talk about it. So the only thing to do is make fun of it. Otherwise, you're either a lesser content creator or a lesser media member, or we're all nuts for talking about the draft, and we're all crazy. And the people that know about the draft are maniacs, and the people who don't know anything about the draft are great. I mean, what? Come on, man. But the answer is you got to build through the draft. It's not about Javon Hargrave. Oh, we're going to sign we're going to throw $20 million at Jayvon Hargrave. How'd that do for you? You know what? We're not going to go sign undrafted free agents at linebacker. We're going to sign Devondre Campbell. Yeah, how'd that do for you? Yeah, you need to be able to handicap the draft or you're not going to win. And the Niners haven't been able to handicap the draft. They haven't won. They've missed 18 times in the first 3 rounds of the draft. That's not doing really well. You did really well to get lucky on Brock Purdy. You'd done really well to sign some undrafted free agents before you went El Cheapo and sat out that undrafted market last year. But you're not killing the draft. You've missed 18 times in the first 3 rounds in the past 9 drafts. You've presided over 9 drafts. You have 3 picks on average. Most teams have 3 picks in the first 3 rounds. On average, you're missing on 2 picks in the first 3 rounds. You're going 1 for 3 on average in your 9 drafts in the first 3 rounds, and you're calling yourself successful. What would you call yourself if you went 2 for 3? What would you say about yourselves if you went like 2.5 for 3? You'd be like, man, I'm Jim Finks. I'm the greatest personnel people in the history of the league all rolled into one. You've missed 18 times in the first 3 rounds. I could share the screen and show you those names if you want. But I think we all know that, so I'll save us. I'll spare us the walk down misery lane. But that's the truth. So we've had success through the draft. You've also had massive failure through the draft. Massive. Dante Pettis, Jalen Hurd, Trey Lance, every first-round pick except for Bosa. You've had huge misses. Huge. Your wide receiver first-round pick from 2 years ago has no touchdowns. Your defensive end first-round pick from this year had 1 sack. You're not killing it in the draft. You're barely passable in the draft. That's the truth. So that's the truth. He says, I'll tell you, it's healthy. Okay, so we gave that part. Lynch was asked about any communication with Brandon Aiyuk that he's had since July. And he said, yeah, throughout the process, there's been a lot of communication. When you make a commitment to a player like that, your hopes are that everything goes smooth, and that's not always the case, and there's been some bumps in the road. But I'm hopeful we can get him back on this field. Really? I mean, what do you think the chances of getting him back on the field? Do you think it would be better if you didn't take all of his guaranteed money away, or if you did? Because you took all of his guaranteed money away, and now you're saying you'd like to get him back on the field. Really? I mean, really? You took away all of his guaranteed money. Last I checked, money is incentive. You kind of took away all of his incentive to come back on the field. I'm even questioning I'm questioning this whole conversation. Do you even want him back on the field? Or do you just want to say you want him back on the field? You should want him back on the field. The rest of your receivers aren't doing much. You paid him enough. You drafted him in the first round. It makes sense you'd want him back on the field. But I get the sense that that's kind of a disingenuous statement, that they want him back in the field. Do they really want him back in the field? If you really wanted him so bad, you wouldn't have cut his guarantees. I think what you really wanted is to get out of his contract, and if he gets back in the field or not, whatever. As long as you got out from underneath that contract, whatever he does is fine. But I don't think he's coming back in the field. I don't think Aiyuk should come back in the field for the Niners. If I was Aiyuk, I would flip the bird to the Niners. No, I'm not coming back in the field. You took away all my guarantees, bro. I'm not coming back. I'm not going to come back and risk anything for you, ever. Cut me loose. I'll go somewhere else. I'll find a new home. I don't think it's a good decision by Aiyuk, but if anybody took all my guaranteed money away, I wouldn't be in a rush to do them any favors. I wouldn't be running out there to get out there. Though I wouldn't have walked away from guaranteed money. I think Aiyuk is, getting bad advice. Bad advice. But I don't believe Lynch when he says we're hopeful we can get him back on the field. That doesn't jive. That doesn't jive. If you really cared about that, you wouldn't have taken away his guarantees. You took away his guarantees. You wanted your money, or did the ownership want their money? But now I get the feeling for the first time that the Niners are either speaking with multiple voices on this, or they're just boldly saying what they want the public to believe, which is that they love Aiyuk, but you waited till he violated his deal and then took away all of his guarantees. So you weren't too concerned about how that would affect the relationship, I'm sure, then. So I don't know. I don't. All this talk about Aiyuk coming back just seems like a bunch of BS. He's not coming back. They don't want him back. He doesn't want to be back. It's a bunch of posturing, and that's how I see it. I don't see it as he's back or they really want him back. No, they don't want him back, and I don't think he wants to be back. I don't think they would even trust him to come back. And if he comes back, is he going to be the same player that he was? Probably not. Probably not. Then Lynch was asked on whether or not the Niners are going to keep or trade Mac Jones this offseason, and the answer is they're going to trade him. But here's what he said. We could always do something, but at this position, nobody exhibited this more than the great Bill Walsh. The more quality players you have in the quarterback room, that sets you up for success. But I think you've got to keep your eyes and ears open to everything. We obviously believe greatly in Brock Purdy, and Brock has earned that trust from us. So, you know, so basically what he's saying is, hey, Walsh established that it's really valuable to have multiple good quarterbacks, and that they understand that that's a good thing. But then when he says, but I think you've got to keep your eyes and ears open to everything, that's kind of like, we're trading him. That's the line that tells the league he's available, And then the other question is, does Mac, Mac's done a nice solid for you. Do you want to do a solid for him? Or is this relationship not about give and take? It's just about take and take. Because if it's about take and take, he gave you a great year, and maybe he can give you another great year. And then he can walk in free agency at the end of that year. Or does he give you a great year, and then he also gives you an asset at $7 million that's quite valuable that you can turn around and trade? So I think the answer is they're trading Mac Jones. They have Brock. They have Adrian Martinez. They have Curtis Rourke. They have next year. There's the whole reclamation project market. The reclamation quarterbacks are going to run to the Niners. After what we've seen the last 2 years from Sam Darnold and Mac Jones, hell yeah, they're going to be – the Niners won't even have to call any of the reclamation quarterbacks. They're going to call them, and they're going to volunteer their services. So maybe it's Anthony Richardson. Maybe it's Zach Wilson. Maybe it's a trade for Davis Mills. Maybe it's, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a quarterback out there they really like. Or maybe there's a quarterback in the draft they really like. I would say they're going to trade Mac Jones, and they're going to probably bring in one more quarterback just to compete with Martinez and Rourke for that number 2 spot and maybe number 3 spot. So that would be my guess. And I bet you I'm right on that one. So I do think they'll trade Mac Jones, but I think it's also their way of saying, hey, we don't need to trade Mac Jones. So if you don't want to come correct, you're going to call us up and say, here's a 4th and a conditional 5th. You can F right off and hit the bricks. I mean, that's basically what Lynch is saying there. He's like, hey, I want a legitimate offer. And what's a legitimate offer for Mac Jones? I think a legitimate offer, and people are like, well, he's not that valuable. Well, then why do you want him? If he's not that valuable, then leave me alone. I got a quarterback I can win with that's on my payroll for $7 million next year. So if he's not that valuable, lose my number. Don't call me. Leave me alone. I don't want to talk to you. I think the Niners can sit there and be like, hey, this is a dream quarterback. Because most quarterbacks in the draft, you got to invest a high pick, and then you never know. Or in free agency, you got to sign a guy to a big money deal, and you never know. Not with Mac Jones. You get Mac Jones under contract at, age 27 for 2026 for $7 million a year. So that $7 million a year price tag, when you attach to a starting NFL caliber quarterback where the going rate's like 20 and between 20 and 50, is absolute thievery. So whatever Mac Jones is worth, he's worth more because of the $7 million price tag. And what you're handing the other team is, hey, you don't have a long-term commitment here. You've got a short-term, financially prudent commitment that's a steal. We're giving you a starting quarterback. You've got everything you want. Normally, you'd have to invest your first-round pick or millions of dollars in free agency in a quarterback, and there are not that many good ones anyway. We're going to give you a quarterback in his prime. And the first year, you have him under contract for $7 million, and you can decide if you don't like him, at the end of the year, you let him walk. You have total flexibility. You got a 1-year look-see at a starting NFL quarterback at $7 million who's ready to roll and has played good football and is accurate and can process and played well with the 49ers in the Niner offense, which is kind of the most prevalent offense in the league today. So I would say the price tag for Mac Jones is going to be a second-round pick and a player, or a second-round pick and another pick, like a second-round pick and a fourth-round pick. It's not going to be some, a late third. No. Why? Why would you trade him for a late third? If you keep him in 2026, you have a great backup quarterback at $7 million, and when he walks at the end of the year, you get a third-round compensatory selection in the 28 draft. So why would you trade Mac Jones for anything at a third-round level or lower? It makes no sense. You can have Mac Jones and still get a third-round pick. So why would you trade him for a third round? I mean, I've heard so many smart football people suggest that the Niners are going to trade Mac Jones for a third-round pick. Why would you give away a player that you can use and get a third-round pick for, and then you're going to trade him and you're not going to get use of him, and you're still going to get a third-round pick? I mean, the GM that authors that trade needs to be canned. I'd rather have Mac Jones and get a third-round pick than not have Mac Jones and get a third-round pick. What's the difference? One draft? Oh, yeah, well, your third-round pick you get from Mac Jones in a trade you get to use this year, where the third-round pick for Mac Jones on a compensatory level, you don't get to use it until the following year. Okay. But that's not that great of a thing. I mean, it's like unless one draft was absolutely head and shoulders better than another. So I think the price tag on Mac Jones is going to be a second-round pick. And I think it's going to be more than that. I think it's going to be a second-round pick and a player, or a second-round pick and a day 3 pick. But they're not going to take a third-round pick because they can keep the player and get a third-round pick. So that, so I mean, and Lynch is saying all the right things there. Hey, we're gonna keep our eyes and ears open and this and that. So it's like, you know what? He's an asset, and come and get him if you want him. That's basically what his message was. It really does sound low. Like they're going to do, there's also like do the right thing for yourself, but there's also do right thing for Mac. And, Darnold signed the 1-year deal. He benefited greatly and jumped in free agency. Now the Niners get a compensatory pick, I believe, in this upcoming draft to account for Darnold going to Seattle. But in this situation with a 2-year deal for Jones, yeah, he's got a 2-year deal, but in a way, I mean, the guy gave you, a chance to, he really saved the season. If he comes to you at the end of the year and says, hey, John, Kyle, trade me, man. Trade me. Just send me somewhere. I really want to play next year. I don't want to. I mean, Mac Jones could have different philosophies, too. Mac Jones has already been on bad teams. He may look at that and say, hey, you know what? Keep me here. I'll stay here, and then let me go pick my own place. Don't trade me. As opposed to what the Raiders called, and they said, here's Michael Mayer and a second-round pick, and you want to take Michael Mayer and a second-round pick. Okay, but then you're not doing me a solid. You're sending me to the Raiders for 1 year. And maybe I don't want to be a Raider. So, Jones is going to have some say in this as well. And I'd love to know how he views it. He played on Bama, so I mean, it's like he could have gone to other schools and probably played more than he played at Alabama. But he went to Alabama. Why? Because on some level, Mac Jones probably wanted to be at Alabama, and he probably wanted to win at Alabama. So he went to Bama, and he won the national championship. Then he gets drafted by New England. He got to play right away. But they were bad. And then he gets to back up in Jacksonville, and they're bad. Now here he is on a winning team, and he's getting to contribute to a winning team. They're going to the playoffs most likely. And who knows? He might wind up playing in the playoffs or the Super Bowl. Now, is that guy in a rush to get out of here? The place where he's probably had the most professional success, and run to another losing situation just so you can say I'm the number one guy? Or would he rather bide his time, hang out? He's only 26, 27, be a Niner for another year, and at 28, test the market and be able to pick where you go. And at that point, who knows? Maybe Lamar's about ready to retire. Maybe there's some good teams with some solid. Maybe you're not looking at the Raiders or the Cardinals or the Jets. Maybe it's teams that actually have real talent and a real future and stability. So that the Jones thing could go in any number of ways. It's really dependent on what Jones wants, and also, what the Niners' ask is. But I think the ask is going to be a second-round pick and either another good pick, a mid-round pick, or most likely a second-round pick and some kind of a player. Give me a player, give me a second-round pick, and then we'll get down the road. You can have Mac Jones. I think if the Niners get what they think is a fair price, they'll do that because I think they want to do right by Jones. But there's also some notion to like, hey, man, no, keep this guy because he may be your starting quarterback if your starter gets hurt. And look what happened this year. I mean, if there was no such thing as Mac Jones, and the Niners had to go to Adrian Martinez or some lesser quarterback this year, and Mac Jones didn't step in and go 5-3, and suddenly you've got somebody else who stepped in for 8 games, and maybe, I don't know, maybe they went 3-5, and now your season, then maybe you're not a playoff team because your backup didn't play well. What would happen to Shanahan? What would happen to Lynch? Could they withstand another year, back-to-back years of missing the playoffs with all these future Hall of Famers and all the talent and all the money they've spent? I don't know. So, Mac Jones may have saved their bacon a little bit, and he definitely saved this season. The Niners would be dead without Mac Jones. So I think they got to be very, very careful with how they go, how they proceed forward with Mac Jones, because they need him. They could absolutely use him. He has real value to the team. And then Lynch was asked if he's disappointed that Brandon Aiyuk's relationship with the team is fractured so quickly after the two sides agreed to a 4-year, $120 million extension back in August of 24. He says, I think watching a player go through that is tough. Some of the other things that have happened on the side, haven't been fun. But sometimes you go through that with players like I've talked about throughout this thing. The story's not written yet, and Brandon's still working to try to come back from his injury, and hopefully his story is not done with the 49ers, and there's still a great ending to it. I mean, wow. I don't even know what to say to that. It just doesn't seem like – I mean, if the 49ers were the only team in football, maybe. But if you're Brandon Aiyuk and they took away all your guarantees, you're really going to come back and sign with the Niners and sign a new deal? And aren't they going to want to see you perform and see how you perform before they give you that deal? So it's just all the talk about him coming back just seems like just for effect. I mean, to me, it does not seem like it's legitimate at all. It seems like it's much more for effect. All right, let's hit a couple of these supers, and then we will bolt for the door. We got this one from Casey. Casey Emen, 7069. Great meeting you at Pig and a Pickle. I was the first guest. Bro, seriously. I walked into Pig and a Pickle. I said, hey, we're meeting there between 11 and 6. And I walked in around 11:15. You know me, I'm always fashionably late. Actually, it was just traffic getting from the East Bay. I was trying to get there at 11. But my man was there. He was sitting right there. Casey was there, sitting there, waiting for me. So, Casey, man, I appreciate you, bro. And thanks for coming out. It was a pleasure meeting you. It was a pleasure talking to you. And we like to do these things at least once a year. I'd like to do them a little bit more. Try to help out our sponsor a little bit, and also, meet our fans and meet our listeners and our viewers. It was really cool. About 100 people showed up. I would say over the course of, the open house day, like we were there from like 11 to 6 or 7, and I would say roughly about 100 people showed up at Pig and a Pickle, and Damon and Mary were thrilled. It was a great turnout, and it was great seeing all you guys. So thanks for coming out. And Casey, it was great meeting you. Silent says, does Rivers have a chance to upset us? No chance. No chance. I think that's going to be a failed experiment. I think that is going to be worth watching, though. I think a lot of people are going to enjoy watching that because I think a lot of people are going to be very curious. What does a guy who sat out for 5 years look like? He's going to complete a few passes, and people are going to be like, oh, wow. But then I think he's going to be sacked. I think he's going to process slow. I think he's going to look really uncomfortable. I think he's going to, if they do a close-up on his eyes at the line of scrimmage, I think you're going to see a guy who's like, really, even though he's played a lot, he hasn't played in a long time. I think it's going to be advantage 49ers. We got this question from Carlos. Will Kendricks be active against the Colts? It really sounds like it. It really sounds like it. Z49er or Z9er says Anthony Richardson so bad he got replaced with a 45-year-old. Laughing my ass off. Yeah, I mean, Anthony Richardson, gosh, I don't even know what to say about Anthony Richardson. You can't take yourself out of the game, and he did that. And I think he lost a lot of support around the league when he did that. I'll say this, though. When I look at the Eagles and what they've done with the tush push, and you think about how important it is to score touchdowns in the red zone, are you telling me that like a Shanahan with all of his creativity, look at Cleveland with their Wildcat direct snaps to Quinshon Judkins. You telling me that the Niners couldn't put couldn't use Anthony Richardson, 6'4", 250, runs 4.4. You couldn't use this guy in some kind of couple plays here and there on the goal line to make sure you score touchdowns? Or how about this? How about wildcat snap to Anthony Richardson on 4th and short instead of quarterback sneak? How about wildcat snap to Anthony? Or just put him in there and just let him take the quarterback snaps to on the QB sneaks to protect Brock's head from concussions and that kind of thing. But I think there's a package of plays where Richardson, I think, could be utilized. He's too big, too strong, too fast, too talented, too athletic to not be able to utilize in on the goal line. So I would be interested. If, no, I know he doesn't process, and I know his accuracy, and I know he's raw, and he probably should have stayed in college. I mean, I get all that. But the Niners have great weapons, and, man, could you imagine, you've got a 1st and goal from the 6, and you go 5 wide, spread formation, empty set, take Purdy out, put in Richardson, and just give him the run-pass option, and just sit there and just be like, hey, take the snap. If you find somebody wide open, zing it in there. If not, run it. Run it. I mean, I think that could be very, very, very useful. I think he could be a very useful piece. He's just too big, too strong, too fast, too athletic. Now, Indy's got a problem because they drafted him in the 1st round, and Ballard's got that over his head. If the Niners pick this guy up, they got no investment. They can use him any way they want. They want to use him on the goal line, they can use him on the goal line. They want to never use him, they can never use him. They're not going to pay anything significant to get him, so why not? I'd do it. I would absolutely do it. Anthony Richardson on the goal line in some kind of a sub package could be phenomenal. Someone said, do you want Richardson over El Gersma? I like El Gersma as a prospect. He played that 12-man football at Laurier in Canada. But he's got big arm. He doesn't have the kind of speed that Richardson has. I mean, it's different. They're different players. I think they're both interesting prospects. And I'll say this: when you look at what like Mac Jones, this Mac Jones signing, when the Niners signed Mac Jones, did anybody go, yes, windfall? Most people were like, really? And then you found out, we didn't even find out right away it was a 2-year deal. Once it came out that it was a 2-year deal, now you're like, oh, wait a second. We got a backup quarterback. We got a backup quarterback that we can turn into a day 2 pick. That's incredible. That's incredible. That's an incredible gain from signing a guy off the street. And that's what the Niners did with Mac Jones. So I would be very aggressive in the quarterback market, especially since you've got the coach, you've got the team that these reclamation project quarterbacks want to play for. So you know what? Build it up. Go sign some intriguing reclamation project quarterbacks every year, and then try to trade them in the offseason. See if there are people that do that. They're called home flippers. They buy a house. The houses on the block are going for $500,000. They buy it for $400,000. They put $20,000 into it. They sell it for $500,000, and they make their money. I mean, it's no different than home flipping. You're just quarterback flipping. And I think it's smart. Maple Missile, as Steve Supremo says here. Curtis Rourke. What if Curtis Rourke really looks good? What if he looks really, really good? You got Brock Purdy, and you've got him signed, and you've got probably a decent backup. But what if he looks great? What if all of a sudden the Maple Missile looks great? Well, guess what? You call up the Raiders and say, give us a couple picks. Here he is. We're sending the Maple Missile over. The Niners should get in the quarterback developmental game with both hands and both feet for the purpose of building their roster with the assets that they can get for the rebuilt quarterbacks. Quarterback flipping. I may do a video on this later today. Quarterback flipping is the business the Niners ought to get into. They're already kind of in it. They got Darnold. They flipped him to Seattle. I mean, they didn't really flip him, but I shouldn't say even Seattle. He went to Minnesota. They didn't flip him to Minnesota. He signed with Minnesota. But the Niners, I think, got a compensatory pick. In this situation, they signed Jones to a 2-year deal, and now they are going to be able to flip him, and they're going to be able to get some kind of a ransom back. And then guess what? You do it again next year. Maybe with Zach Wilson. You do it again the year after. There's always going to be a need for quarterbacks. There's 32 teams in the league. There are not 32 quarterbacks in almost any given year. Sometimes there's 20. Sometimes there's 25. There's always a handful of teams that don't have quarterbacks. So if you have a system that makes quarterbacks look good, then sign reclamation projects and spin them into day 2 picks and, start building your roster up in that fashion, using that avenue. I think it would be really, really smart. I don't think that a lot of teams can do it. And I think the Niners can do it because of the presence of Shanahan. Z Niners says Penn State just hired Matt Campbell. Yeah. Well, you knew Matt Campbell wasn't going to stick around Iowa State forever. I mean, Ames ain't bad, but, Iowa State has hardly have that tradition. So, yeah, if you can go to Happy Valley and Penn State, and they're going to triple your salary and this and that. Look at this one. Get this guy going. I'm delusional. Mr. Big Daddy Joe. Delusional Larry thinking Zach Wilson will turn it around. Yeah, because tons of people thought Sam Darnold was going to turn it around. Oh, yeah, tons of people were bidding against the Niners for Mac Jones. Yeah, nobody was. Anybody could have had those guys. They came here. So, yeah, it's funny. There's so many people who see things as they are in the present, and they can never, ever see that changing. What you are in the present is not necessarily what you're going to be. It's funny. Know your NFL history. The Hall of Fame. Go look at the 25 quarterbacks in the Hall of Fame. None of them, like hardly any of them, maybe one or two, were good as rookies. Most of them weren't good. Most of them weren't good until they were 25, 26, 27. Steve Young wasn't good until he was 31. 31. So think about that. There's people that are walking around saying, Zach Wilson's a bust. Yeah, right now he is. He's a bust. But he's 23. Trey Lance, 23. Guys get better. Ask yourself what you were doing at 23, and did you get better at your job from 23 to 27? I think if you're honest with yourself, you're going to say, yeah, I didn't know much about my job, and then all of a sudden I got better. I got better at it. How good was Darnold in Carolina? How good was Darnold with the Jets? He was a punchline of a joke. People used to say, oh, I'm seeing ghosts, because he said that in the game against the Patriots. I'm seeing ghosts, and the live mic picked it up. He was a nothing joke, failed quarterback. Now he's a multi-million-dollar quarterback on one of the NFC's best teams with a chance to win the Super Bowl. So if we saw things as they were, nobody ever would have taken a chance on Sam Darnold. If we saw things as they were, Bill Walsh wouldn't have traded for Steve Young. But some people are visionaries, and some people see the future and can project. And Walsh was one of those people. And he saw that Steve Young wasn't a bad quarterback. He was in a bad situation. I did an interview with Brian Billick, and Brian Billick said the hardest thing to glean when you're watching an NFL game is to separate the quarterback from what's happening around the quarterback. I mean, it's really as simple as that. If we didn't know Mahomes was great and we just watched the Super Bowl last year, we could have come away with, he stinks. He ain't nothing. He ain't anywhere as good as that Hurts guy. Why? Because he was getting dominated. But we knew, we had the previous knowledge of knowing that Mahomes is the greatest quarterback of his generation. And so we saw it for what it was, which was the Eagles were just better. And they had a better team. And yet Mahomes is still the better quarterback than Hurts. Way, 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 way better. And every football fan in the world, including the Eagles head coach, would take Mahomes over Jalen Hurts. But Jalen Hurts kicked Mahomes' ass in the Super Bowl last year. So some people see things as they are. Other people see things as they potentially can be. I get it. Most people. Got this guy. Is this guy calling me a joke? Nope, you are the joke. Okay. Is that directed towards me? Bye-bye, Spy. See you, Spy. But thanks for coming, bro. Anyway, hey, that's going to do it for us. Thanks to all of you guys. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to our friends at Sleeper. Thanks to Sleeper for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. We should tell you right now, you can Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. So if you're a fan of Sleeper, Sleeper is a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. Check out Sleeper. And, they do an amazing job. It's a lot of fun. If you haven't played with Sleeper and done any of it, you really need to. Really good time, really good sponsor. 49er football season is presented by Sleeper. It's the fastest growing fantasy platform in the world. It's a one-stop shop. You get blazing fast news, real-time stats, group chat, season-long links, and, of course, Sleeper picks for daily fantasy. Use promo code Larry. Real easy to remember, Larry. Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Links in the description. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, that does it for this stream, but that doesn't do it for the day. We got a lot planned today. Busy Tuesday. 49ers off, so we're not down in Santa Clara today, but we will be on tonight at 6 o'clock on Niners Nightly. So check that out on KMBR at 6 o'clock. Paul Kaharski, I believe, is going to be our guest tonight. We'll also stream later tonight with the great Raj Melwani from RSF 49ers. And then at 3:30, in about 2 hours from now, 2 hours and 12 minutes from now, Grant Cohn and I will stream, co-stream. Actually, we're going to stream on his channel. We'll stream on his channel at 3:30. So join us at 3:30 on Grant's channel for a little Krug, Cohn, back and forth YouTube hijinks. And until then, thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krug Show. Also, I want to thank my good friend Anthony Catania, the owner of Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California, on the Monterey Peninsula. Anthony's at 831-521-5264. He's a great follow on IG at Sharp Corners 831 on the gram. Anything that you order, if you're a Krug Show fan, anything you order between now and the end of the year that needs shipping from Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles, Anthony is paying your shipping costs. So you order an autographed Josh Allen helmet and you live in suburban Buffalo or whatever, and you buy it from Anthony, he's going to send it to you, and he is going to pay the shipping on that helmet to send it across the country. So very nice gesture by Anthony for Krug Show fans. Once again, Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. Anthony's at 831-521-5264. Thanks to Anthony for being a great sponsor of the Krug Show. And that's going to do it for us. Have a great rest of your day, and catch me and Grant at 3:30 on his channel. Until then, peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared.